Welcome, I'm Paul, this is Dave. Today I have 15 glitch in the Matrix and supernatural stories for you. A future revealed that she doesn't want. Case file number 2621, written by Juicy Gargoyle. A face flash forwarded. I was going through my morning routine, listening to an audiobook, drinking coffee, and setting up to do my makeup. I'd already washed and prepped my face, so I was ready to begin. I looked in the mirror, and my heart stopped. Staring back at me was myself, but I was old. I'm in my 30s right now, but at that moment, I looked to be about 60. My eyelids were hooded and droopy, with wrinkles on my forehead and around my eyes and mouth. I blinked. Nothing changed. I just stood there, staring at my reflection in disbelief for at least 10 seconds. It wasn't until I looked away, then back at the mirror, that my reflection snapped back to normal. I was back to looking like my 30-year-old self. What made it even weirder is that I had just finished my skincare routine in the same mirror minutes before, and everything looked completely normal. And it lasted long enough that I got a good, solid look at myself, which makes me doubt this was just a trick of the eye. What in the world happened? Was it a glitch in the Matrix? A flash forward? One day, when I'm actually that age, maybe I'll look in the mirror and see my younger self looking back. That would be a treat. Case file number 2622, written by Pepilou, Midnight in Bucharest. This happened in Bucharest in the mid-2000s, and it's my go-to weird glitch in the Matrix story that I cannot explain. It's 11 p.m. on a Friday. I'm driving home, and I get a call from my best friend. It's someone else on the line telling me my friend is extremely drunk, acting like an idiot in a bar, and asking if it's possible to come and get him as people are calling the cops and he doesn't want to leave. I go to the old town center. I see my buddy with 3 of his university buddies outside the bar, and they're completely wasted. There's a police car parked in front of me, but it's traffic police. So the cops are just watching me collect these messes and struggle to get them in the car. One of them throws up on the sidewalk. I'm stressed, as earlier that day, I'd already gotten a ticket. I did a small mistake in the Victorial roundabout during rush hour. I'm being specific as this place will come up later. And the cop decided to make an example out of me, and it really scared me a bit. So I managed to get them in the car, and the moment I start the car, the cops block me. They check me for alcohol, make me blow in the tester, check my papers, and one of the cops is really trying to give me a ticket for anything. He's now saying I'm not supposed to be on this specific road or something like that. It's bullcrap. He just wants to burn me. But the other cop comes and tells him to let me go because I had already gotten a traffic ticket that day, and apparently they couldn't give me 2 tickets for minor traffic violations in 24 hours, which is a rule I've never heard of before or since then. This was mildly weird, but not the glitch in the Matrix stuff. Anyway, I drive them to the opposite part of town where they lived in the student complex. No more incidents. It's now about 12:15 a.m., and I'm driving home. I get to Piazza Victoriae, which is the absolute central point of the city. It's a huge square that's a roundabout from which every main boulevard of the city starts. Each exit from the square and roundabout is a huge 6-lane boulevard, and each boulevard takes you to a different neighborhood. Each boulevard is very unique looking, and it's very well marked, so it's almost impossible for someone who lives in the city to take the wrong exit in its place. It's also 12:30 a.m. by now, and it's completely empty, so zero traffic or anything that could distract me to make me take the wrong exit. I enter the roundabout. I see my exit, and I take it like I've previously done hundreds of times. I get on the boulevard, but I immediately know this is not my boulevard. It's a completely different one that takes me in a very wrong direction. The only option I have is to turn around to the square. I say, okay, that's weird, but okay, I've had a very long day. Was in university and I also worked. The 2 police encounters, both very stressful. Almost 2 tickets, the whole commotion with the drunk friends. I turn around, go back in the roundabout, drive until my next exit, take my exit, and I'm on the other boulevard again. Same thing as the first time. I say, okay, I'm a complete dumbbutt for doing this. I need to focus now. Turn around, get into the roundabout, drive until my exit, take my exit. I'm focused now on all the details, but nope, I'm on the other boulevard again. Now I start to get annoyed at myself. I start screaming in the car out of frustration. I turn around, get into the roundabout, drive slowly. I get to my exit slowly. I take my exit slowly, staying focused and sharp and clear. And I'm on the other boulevard again. This is freaking me out by now, as you can imagine. 2 hours I spent there, doing the same thing, and I haven't seen one person or one car in that time, which is another strange thing from that night. I don't believe there's ever been 2 hours in that place without a car passing. This is literally the epicenter of traffic in a city with 2+ million people. I was having a breakdown. I was almost crying from anger at the end, screaming my lungs out every time it happened. And then, I finally got my exit and I found myself on my street, and in 5 minutes I was home, and the clock said 2:40 a.m. I simply cannot explain it. It's like the Enterprise on TNG, sometimes they get stuck in a causal loop, but this was just a space loop, so you weren't reset in time every time your car blew up or something like that. You just couldn't escape that specific location. It's like a Mobius strip, fourth-dimensional prison of sorts, where no matter what direction you go, how you travel, you always end up right back where you started. There's actually a theory that the whole universe is in this configuration, so even if you could travel at millions of times the speed of light and you went to the very edge, well, you'd keep going beyond the observable universe and eventually you would loop back around right to where you started. Case file number 2623, written by Arthur Sampson. Budgeting across the multiverse. Robbing from the rich, giving to the poor. A tale as old as time itself, but with a new twist. What if you're stealing from yourself to give to yourself? Okay, so follow me on this one. Recently, I have fallen on hard times. Blah blah blah. Food stamps, we call it EBT in Colorado. Went grocery shopping at a local Kroger, and I was shopping for the cheapest pack of tortillas I could find. I was about to buy 3 10-packs of the Kroger brand. They were in my shopping cart and everything. However, I put them back because I saw 3 30-packs of tortillas that were the same type and size that were currently discontinued for the same price as the 3 10-packs. So I put the 3 10-packs back on the shelf, grabbed the 3 30-packs, bought them along with the rest of my groceries, and went home. And I'm sure you can see where I'm going with this. I know I put the 3 10-packs back onto the shelf and only bought the 3 30-packs because I currently do not have the budget for both. And guess what I found in the freezer in addition to the 3 30-packs, about an hour after I got home and put away all the groceries. I know for a fact I had everything situated in the freezer properly, but my uncle informed me the freezer door kept popping open, so I investigated. Again, I know for a fact I had everything organized in the freezer properly, because if it wasn't, my OCD would keep screaming at me until it was. So take a guess as to what I found in addition to the 3 30-packs of tortillas. That's right. You guessed it. The same 3 10-packs of tortillas I did not buy. The same ones I clearly remember putting back on the shelf. Somewhere else in the multiverse, another version of myself that is better off at the moment, is cursing under his breath because he just lost 3 packs of tortillas somewhere else and had no idea where they went, and now has to go back to the store to buy more. It's like the Robin Hood of the multiverse, spelled with 2 B's, and not 1. But I digress. Cheers. Well, it's not theft, obviously, because you didn't will it. I mean, unless you try like you were thinking, come on, give me those tortillas from myself in another universe. I wonder if you can do that. Best we don't engage with that mindset where we start stealing from each other willfully from different universes. Would you rob from yourself in a different universe? I mean, you would never know for sure, but would you do it? Take a little bit? I don't know. I shouldn't. We definitely shouldn't. Case file number 2624, written by Arthur's Bane. Fire Lookout, star Blackout. I reside in a city close to the Canadian Rockies in the province of Alberta. Our Forestry Service fire lookouts are human-run. far more dependable than computers, and this is according to their studies. The year was 1980, and my good friend was manning a lookout. I went out to visit him and spent a week bringing my own food, etc. I drove on a forestry road and was glad I had my truck. He met me, knowing roughly my ETA. On the third night, the lookout, equipped with a tower and large cabin all decked out, was where I stayed. In the middle of the night, I was awakened and the cabin was filled with a light. It wasn't irritating, but you could feel it. My friend was already up. I asked what was going on, and he told me that his friends were back and that we should step outside. Looking up, I had to take a moment to do a reality adjustment. I asked, "What am I looking at?" He said, "It's the underbelly of a ship." After a long pause, I said, "You mean a ship from—" He jumped in and said, "A bloody UFO." It was a calm and clear summer night. The ship blocked out the starfield, and the forest was silent. It made no sound. Then it began to move slowly down the valley. No sound of engines. He went on to radio the next tower, letting that person know their friend was on the way. It was a few hundred feet above the ground, and as it moved further, I could perceive a triangular shape. I still think about this, and when we get together, it always comes up. All we can do is wonder, really. Well, my takeaway is that he called them his friends, presumably because they've been there before, multiple times. Creepy. They have a fascination with your friend. Case file number 2625, written by Carla. Horseradish and the Matrix. My husband and I decided to have roast beef sandwiches for dinner. We had the deli and rolls delivered, but forgot horseradish sauce. I asked him to include potato chips and French onion dip in the second delivery, and he obliged. After waiting a half hour for the second delivery, we were ready to eat dinner around 10 p.m. at night. This is normal for us as we are older kids out of the house and are night owls. I'm standing in the kitchen and he's sitting in a kitchen chair. I take the horseradish potato chips and dip from the delivery bag. I open the container. My husband said something to me. I looked at him, then back down at the dip. The plastic lid was off, and the thin plastic that's under the plastic lid was opened. It had a rip like it split the thin plastic cover. I asked my husband, "Did I open that? I don't remember opening it." He replied, "You must have." I was kind of tired, so maybe I did open it. I then looked at the dip, and it looked like less than there should be. I told him that, "Nah, it just settled like chips do and stuff." I was a little leery, but I scooped some to dip my chips in and put the container back in the refrigerator. The next morning, before I went to sleep, we sleep during the day. My job is night shift, so I keep the same habits even on days off. I ate some leftovers. I took the dip out of the refrigerator. When I took the plastic lid off the dip and the thin plastic was completely sealed, I ran to get my husband. We looked in the refrigerator in case maybe we had been sent two. But I know only one was put away. There was not a second dip. I opened the thin plastic cover and it ripped, looking just like the rip from last night. Inside the dip was filled almost to the top. We were both flabbergasted. I told him, "Glitch in the Matrix." He replied, "Or time travel." Glitch in the time travel matrix? We have no explanation really. If just one of us this happened to, maybe we could have discounted it to tiredness, but both of us experienced the same thing? Really weird. Yeah, it's like a localized time reset on the object. There's been a few of these, like items repairing themselves fully after being shattered. There's no way to glue them back together, they were perfectly repaired, stuff like that. But just for food, which I prefer. Case file number 2626, written by TWY Stead F8. When change becomes a fortune. About a week ago, I was looking for the title of my car so I could sell it. I have a wooden cigar box on my dresser where I sometimes stash cash, collectible coins, and other assorted doodads. When I was searching everywhere in the house for this car title, I looked in that cigar box multiple times and nothing of note was in there. Certainly not a car title, and certainly not any spending cash. I never did find it and had to spend $300 on a credit card to replace all my vehicle titles, which had gone missing. I would be cash broke until I sold this car. I had been short on pocket cash for a while, so a few days after this, I retrieved a gallon Ziploc bag of loose change that had been in my dresser for a very long time. I asked my boyfriend to take it back to his bank to trade it in for paper bills. The coins were originally in a growler, a 2-quart glass beer bottle, but probably 2 years ago, I transferred the coins into a bag for the Coinstar machine in case I got in a pinch. And there the bag sat, untouched, not even looked at for 2 years. Now keep in mind, the biggest coin you can drop into a growler is a quarter. My boyfriend got back from the bank and was totally shaken. He said he was devastated. His bank has a free, self-serve coin machine. He said that while he was pouring the coins in, he started noticing that there were solid, silver 50-cent pieces getting sucked into the machine. He stopped and rescued 7 of them, but there is no way to know how many went down into the machine. A theoretical roll of 50-cent pieces holds 20. The pieces are collectible and range from $8 to $40 each, depending on the year and the mint. But of course, the machine would only count them as 50 cents each. He asked the teller if they could retrieve the coins, but they said the machine was contracted by a third party, so they have no access. What is really weird about this is that I have no idea why or how those silver pieces would have been in the bag. My boyfriend is a coin expert and had given me many antique and collectible coins in the past, but there's no explanation as to why I would have put any of them in a bag meant for the Coinstar machine. Another few days later, I sold the car and went to put the cash in my cigar box. When I opened it up, right on top was $570 in cash, in the same box I had looked in several times a week earlier. I cannot even figure out which part of the story is the most improbable, but it sure seems like the universe was trying to give me some extra cash and would not take no for an answer. Very kind universe. Case file number 2627, written by Migrated Wolf. The Monochrome Basement. When I was younger, about 9, I had an unfinished part of the basement. I used to play a lot with my brother and my best friend there. One day, we decided to play a prank on my brother and hide in the unfinished part of the basement as he was coming down the stairs and try to scare him while he persuaded my aunt to give him some ice cream. So we ran to the opposite ends of the basement. I hid behind a wall in the corner near a pipe and tried to be as quiet as possible. After about 2 to 3 minutes, I didn't hear any noise. In fact, I remember it being way too quiet in a house with 3 kids and an adult cleaning upstairs. So I check around the corner and the room is fucking insanely gray. It's hard to explain, but everything had lost color where earlier it had been broad daylight shining in the windows and was really weirding me out. As I step out from behind the corner, I see someone crawling into the crawl space under the stairs, someone who also looked very gray and was moving quite slow. Before I go on, I should mention, my friend who was over that day used to have parents who smoked, and he, as a result, smelled terrible. I decided to follow who I, at the time, thought was my friend into the crawl space under the stairs. As I entered, I saw nothing. A few boxes that were always there, still without color, still way too quiet. I start to get really terrified and yell out loud as a nervous attempt at a joke to calm myself down. Friend's name? I know you're here. Stop messing with me. I can smell you. To which I hear an offended, "Hey!" come from above me. I get out from under the stairs and walk out of the unfinished part of the room to find my brother and my friend sitting on the top of the stairs eating ice cream together at the top. They were laughing and talking, saying they thought I was waiting for them, so they didn't come down, just to see how long I'd stay down there. My aunt was also vacuuming, and the color was all back to normal as soon as I left that part of the room. I told them to get out, close the door, and refused to go back down. I was terrified, and I still have no idea what happened to this day. The part that still weirds me out is that I was hiding right near the door too. I walked right past it as I went to the crawl space. There was no way my friend or my brother could have snuck past me without me seeing or at least hearing them. They seemed terrified when I told them what happened too. Case file number 2628, written by Mercury Sulfide. The Illusion of Escape. This happened a few years ago, when I was still in university. It was nighttime, just after my Russian language club meeting, and my dad came to pick me up from campus since I can't drive. We decided to grab some pizza on the way home, so we headed towards Pizza Hut. There was road construction along our usual route, and we were forced to take a detour through a suburb. It was a large neighborhood, and we ended up driving for quite a while, unable to find the way out. We went in circles a few times. Eventually, we drove up a street with a slight incline. From the top, both of us saw what looked like traffic lights, cars, and at the top, a gas station straight ahead. Finally, an exit. As we continued forward and descended the hill, we lost sight of the traffic lights. When we exited the neighborhood, we were shocked to find no traffic lights, no gas station, and no signs of anything remotely like that. There wasn't even anything nearby that could have been mistaken for it, just a dark, empty field, and the neighborhood behind us. It was such a bizarre experience. My dad and I still talk about it to this day. Yeah, so this happens a few times. In the past, I've read stories where people go into towns that don't even exist, and they even interact with people there, like in gas stations, which come up often. But I'm glad that you and your dad talk about it. Often in these stories, people just freak out and just shut down. They go mentally catatonic and they can't talk about it with other people, even with the people that they experienced it with. So that's unfortunate, but glad you're not in that camp. Case file number 2629, written by Nix Nivis. My Tuesday routine turns into an existential crisis. So I've had this EV for a couple of years that I use for my daily commute. Out of the 5 cars I've owned, this is one of the only 2 with a wiper on the rear window. But they seem to have cut some corners building the thing, and I always thought they installed a second wiper fluid tank in the trunk to avoid having to run a fluid line from the front to the very back. I vividly remember regularly filling up the rear tank multiple times over the years. It was always a bit tedious, removing the carpeting and pouring into the generously sized but tricky to reach opening of a tank in the lower right-hand corner of the trunk. I also clearly remember how the front wipers running dry didn't automatically mean the rear wiper would be empty too, and vice versa. So one day, both tanks are empty. As I was unloading groceries from the trunk anyway, I decided to take care of it right then. I emptied the whole trunk, pulled out the carpeting, and got ready to refill the rear tank first. Only, there was no tank. Not hidden, not relocated, it just didn't exist. Not only that, but a friend of mine who's a car mechanic told me he's never ever heard of a car with a separate wiper fluid tank for the rear. Not once, not ever. What really struck me was the absolute certainty with which I started this whole thing. I didn't hesitate. There wasn't a shadow of a doubt in my mind. I was fully expecting this to be a normal Tuesday, refilling the rear wiper fluid tank, something I'd done so many times before. But that tank never existed, and I was completely baffled. To wrap this up, I did some digging and learned that false memories are a real psychological phenomenon. They're often described as vivid memories of a specific moment, but with no memory of anything that came before or after it. And yeah, that kinda checks out. I honestly can't remember walking to or from the car in any of these supposed refill moments. But maybe that's just because it was too mundane to hold on to. To be fair, our other car does have a weird layout with the starter battery in the trunk. I double-checked that and it's true. So maybe my mind somehow blended the 2 cars and filled in the blanks with something that never actually happened? You know, doubting your own memory is fine, and it is true. There are psychological effects where, when we remember a memory, we are altering it slightly. And if you compound that over many cycles, yeah, your memories can be altered completely, like redrawing an image that you describe to someone else, who describes it to someone else, and so on and so on. Eventually, it's nothing like the original. Or, you know, that game where you speak into one ear, and when it gets back to you, it's something completely different. But this is so specific over so many different memories, not just a single instance of you refilling the wiper fluid in the trunk, but multiple times. For me at least, that pushes more into the multiverse territory. Case file number 2630, written by Nether Crestal, the 317 Omen. My family lives in the middle of nowhere in Kentucky, and our house is surrounded by forest and mountains. In high school, I invited a bunch of my friends over on Halloween to camp out at the pond behind our house. My mom is a great storyteller, and she came with us to tell us horror stories. It was dark outside, and we were in my kitchen loading up on snacks to take back with us. It was a long walk in the dark to the pond, so we wanted to make sure we had plenty. I turned to my friend and asked her what time it was. She pulled out her Nokia phone, and as we looked at it, it flashed 3:17 across the screen. We thought maybe we were just seeing things, so we showed it to my mom to confirm. As soon as my mom looked at it, it died. She couldn't get it to turn back on. "Everybody remember that time," my mom taunted, trying to scare us even more. "Something is going to happen at that time." We headed up to the pond to sit around the campfire and continue to tell stories. Let me just say, there's no feeling quite like being scared to death with your back facing the dark woods and not knowing what's out there. Every crackle of the fire sounds like something getting closer and closer. We had been out there for a couple of hours when all of a sudden, my friend's dead cell phone started ringing. There was no service out there, by the way. And when we checked our watches, we saw it was 3:17 a.m. Then we heard a sound like a car crashing into something and started to freak out even more. We started running through the dark woods back to my house, expecting to see a horrible accident. When my house came into view, we couldn't see anything. My stepdad had been at our house asleep, and the sound had awoken him, and he met us outside. My parents told us to get in the house while they drove down the road to make sure everything was okay. They never found anything, and we never heard about any accidents happening nearby. A phantom ghostly sound is indeed terrifying, but the fact your stepdad heard it too, in the house, well, that's even creepier. There definitely was something that produced the sound. Case file number 2631, written by Whoozy B33, The Book That Found Us. Earlier this week, my husband decided he wanted to get a second-hand Goosebumps book for nostalgia. We both grew up with them, so I thought it was a cute idea. He searched for one on a local second-hand app and found the exact title he wanted. Since he wouldn't be home for the next day, he chose to have it delivered to a pickup point. Importantly, he never gave the seller our home address. The book was being sent from the northwest of the country and arrived the next day by post. Everything was fine, but the next day, Wednesday, he got a message from a delivery company saying he had a package out for delivery. He had no idea what it could be. I assumed it was some sort of scam and told him to ignore it. But he copied the tracking number into the official delivery company website, and sure enough, there was a real package on its way to him. Later that day, we found it in our mailbox, and it was the exact same Goosebumps book he ordered. Which is already weird. There are hundreds of Goosebumps books, but this second copy came from a completely different part of the country, and it was sent by a second-hand bookshop he's never heard of. He's never visited their website, never created an account, never been charged, and never got any kind of email confirmation. There was nothing to indicate he had interacted with them in any way. Even stranger, nobody else knew which specific Goosebumps book he wanted except the original seller, who didn't have his address. Case file number 2632, written by Annie B. 25. Books, Backpacks, and Yellow Mist. When I was in college, I was attending a study session with 3 other friends in the basement of the library. We had to leave early for a sorority function. We grabbed our books and backpacks, but didn't put everything together until we were out in the hallway, so we didn't disturb the other students. As we were putting everything away, the ground started shaking, and we looked around. I saw this yellow, gaseous figure running and gliding down the bookshelves, knocking a few books down, and knocking down those loose papers from bulletin boards like it was being blown from wind. As it started approaching us, we ran back into the classroom. Everyone looked up at us annoyed for disrupting the session. We asked if anyone had felt the ground shake, and they said no. We hesitantly walked back into the hallway, and everything was back in place. There were no books on the ground, and the papers were back on the bulletin board. We discussed what we all saw, and my friends say they all saw a yellow gaseous figure knocking stuff down, but I can only be sure of what I saw. I know at least one friend saw something because she said, "What was that thing?" And then that's when I said something about the yellow gaseous figure, and everyone agreed that's what they saw. This kind of reminds me of the scene in Ghostbusters, in the library. Why do ghosts like books? Case file number 2633, written by I, Pretty Fish. Men in suits, kids in shock. Westfall UFO sighting. One day I was talking to my dad's ex's grandmother, and she started talking about the school we used to play in on weekends. In the 60s, an unidentified craft was seen flying over a primary school, watched by both students and teachers alike. Several students chased after the aircraft, which landed in a field-like place nearby. One student was never seen again. One was declared insane, and another seemingly disappeared after speaking to the military. Air Force and Army personnel were on the scene of the landing within minutes. Men in suits came to the school and ordered students and teachers to be silent about what they'd seen. They even made teachers sign gag orders. Parents were told to tell their children they had seen nothing if anyone asked, and to this day it's played off as weather balloons. There's even a documentary about it. After hearing this, I went and spoke to some locals. They backed up everything and added that people had been threatened into silence. Apparently, weird sightings are extremely common around the area, including large groups of stars suddenly flocking together and heading in the same direction simultaneously. I love a good classic UFO story. If UFOs are here, and they can be detected by us, then you can be sure the government knows about it. They wouldn't want that getting out. Just say it's weather balloons, or gas pockets, whatever. Case file number 2634, written by Backling23, UFOs and the State Patrol. Several years ago, I was in my backyard with my dad, uncle, and grandpa. It was a summer night, and we had a bonfire going, probably 10 p.m. If you look out from my backyard, there's some woods to the left, and a house whose backyard touches mine to the middle right. Anyway, this glowing orange thing comes out from behind the woods. It looked like an airplane, but much brighter for being so far away. It was moving steadily in a straight line, then stopped above the other house and shot upward out of sight. As soon as it disappeared, another came out, then two more, one more, three in a triangle, and two more. Okay, we were petrified. We live right by a smaller airport, so we called to ask if they had any ideas. They didn't. My aunt works for a military contractor, Aerospace Engineering Division. We asked if she had any ideas. Nope. Both of those calls were made on my uncle's phone. He got a call a few days later from the State Highway Patrol asking about what he saw and telling him not to worry. Scares the crap out of me to this day. Case file number 2635, written by Objective Emu, 7542. The sunglasses that everyone saw, except me. I own two pairs of sunglasses, one black and one brown. I found both on the ground, the black pair in a subway station and the brown pair on a hiking trail. About a month ago, I went to the beach with my partner and two friends. I brought the black sunglasses and wore them all day. Afterward, we went to a bar. When we were leaving for the day, I couldn't find the sunglasses and mentioned it. In the end, I shrugged it off. After all, I had found them on the ground in the first place. But my friend said, "Oh no, you lost your Burberry sunglasses? I'd die." My other friend chimed in, "Yeah, seriously, how much did those cost anyway?" I explained that I'd found them and hadn't even realized they were Burberry. My partner laughed and said the brand name was printed clearly on them. I figured I'd just never noticed before, and suddenly, I felt kind of bad about losing them. One friend joked that I didn't seem like a Burberry sunglasses kind of person, and said she'd been surprised to see me wearing them. All three of them remembered me wearing sunglasses with the Burberry logo that day. I forgot about the whole thing until today. While going through my backpack, I found the black sunglasses in a weird pocket I don't usually use. I was relieved and immediately checked for the Burberry logo. There was no branding at all. I took them to my partner and asked if these were the ones he meant. He said no. Those weren't the sunglasses I'd worn to the beach. I showed him the brown ones too, but he shook his head again. According to him, it had been a different pair of black sunglasses with Burberry clearly written on them. Here's the strangest part. I moved to this country 2 years ago. I didn't bring any sunglasses with me, and I haven't bought any here either. The black and brown pairs I found are the only ones I've ever owned or worn. So I have absolutely no idea where this alleged pair of designer sunglasses came from, or where they went. Now time for the jokes of the day. My son was just born, and another dad at the nursery congratulated me and said his daughter was born yesterday, said maybe they'll marry each other. Sure, like my son is going to marry someone twice his age. My daughter was upset that it was raining and said, I wish I had a weapon that could shoot the rain and make it go away. Obviously, I told her that would never work. For that, you need a rainbow. My 16-year-old son wanted to know what it was like to be a parent, so I woke him at 2 a.m. to tell him my sock had come off. I was in the bar last night when the waitress yells, Does anyone know CPR? I yelled back, I know all those letters. Everyone laughed, well, except this one guy. The longest drum solo in history was 6 hours and 28 minutes, performed by a child sitting behind me on the flight to Toronto. That would be annoying. Like the video, subscribe, hit the bell. Kinetic Symphony, signing off.